Does Fate Grand Order know how to end an episode, or does it? I mean, we get to see Mama come in with her freakishly large, godlike appearance, snakes coming out of everywhere. She can literally just pick you up and squish you, but then she has like a million snake heads. It's like, okay, yeah, next week needs to come as soon as possible. I mean, the episode kicks off with Solomon to begin with, and you're like, okay, this man's powerful, and then they end it making Solomon look like nothing, at least in terms of pure size and power. Like, Fate Grand Order is not letting up, and I'm glad to see it continuing on a very brutal but also character-driven path. I definitely like this episode for just the entire idea of Inhuman allies. I thought that was interesting because there's been a lot of hints, there's been a lot of doubt of what Ana actually is, and Merlin himself has fully admitted since basically day one. He doesn't view himself as being this perfect, righteous person. He needs humans, and we see that he feeds on the dreams of humans. That's where he gets his energy, and I like the idea that you have a girl who apparently wants to reveal her secret, whatever it may be. She's very much keen on telling Fujimaru, the characters overall that she's been traveling with, that hey, this is my secret and whatever happens is gonna happen. And the direction they took with Merlin shutting it down was something I wasn't expecting, but I'm really glad they went the direction they did. Because you have a character who is basically the big bro. He's always someone who's smiling, who's charming, but he is saying there is no reason for you to tell these people your secret. It will only do more harm than good. Because, as he mentions, our main character is the kind of person who, it doesn't matter what anyone says or does, he'll just kind of go along with it, and as long as you're not trying to betray him, it doesn't matter what kind of flaws you have, he'll just roll with it. So it's like, what would telling him about your secret do? It's actually best to keep it a secret, and when the time comes you'll know what to do. And then he kind of drops that kind of fourth wall breaking moment where he's like, with all this foreshadowing, and I don't want it to actually end all that sad, which was a nice little touch. But I did like that conversation and that dialogue because it just makes you kind of look at Fate Grand Order in a different light, as if even though these are characters that they're traveling with and things like that, it doesn't necessarily make them good people. It doesn't necessarily make them perfect or human. It's like they can be inhuman but also not want to destroy humanity, because in terms of Merlin's case, he uses their energy to keep himself active, right? So it's like, it's so interesting that they're going the direction, especially with Merlin, as being like not some super righteous or bad person, but just these people, they keep him alive, and in return he helps them. It's like, it's super interesting how they're not just going the road of everyone who's on Fujimaru's side is righteous and perfect. Instead, it's like, sometimes they have their own corruption to them, but it doesn't mean they have to be an enemy. And I like that whole conversation, because for a while I was like, yeah, tell us, what the hell is going on with you? And then it gets shut down. But I mean, I definitely think sooner rather than later we will learn whatever her secret is, and why she seemingly hates humanity and wants to kill Merlin, but, is really pretty much a sweetheart as seen by her interactions up to this point. I just like seeing just that dialogue, and then we switch over to Leonidas, and just his stuff is just great. I love this man. Like, when he takes off his helmet, he looks like any other big bro, gonna pat you on the back, get you to lift bricks, make sure that your body is ready for the next battle. But then he puts on his Spartan helmet, and he's the badass commander who you do not want to get in the way with. I thought it was actually pretty cool to see how the demonic beast broke through the wall, and you're like, oh shit, they actually finally broke through, and it's not all that menacing. And I like to see just how good Gilgamesh's army and just ideas and military might actually is. Like, even though the demonic beasts are coming around, and obviously that's not what you would want to happen, they were able to push back wave after wave pretty damn easily, and then once they had to attack them on the actual battlefield where they would want to attack them, even though there was a lot more than anticipated, they still did pretty damn well, I have to say. And to actually see that Gilgamesh is using a cannon that fires his holy treasures as this ultimate blast of get the hell off my property or you're not gonna see tomorrow was pretty awesome, I have to say. There wasn't a whole lot of action in this episode, excluding just giant mother coming out of the earth and is about to annihilate everything, but there was enough to actually see it, instead of just hearing about, oh, they're attacking this wall, or they're doing this or doing this. It was actually nice to see how the fight was brought to them, and then they had to return the favor and bring the fight to the demonic beast, but then ultimately ended up being a trap, and it was all to lure in someone who obviously didn't want to be lured. And like, that's the great thing about Grand Order right now, is you can like foreshadow like, okay, here's something from, I think it was mentioned, it was the 4th Grail War that they were kind of fighting in there. They were trying to get the 4th one. Solomon came in, just wrecked their day, and then he's waking up from a bad dream, realizing he has to get stronger because this time he cannot fail, but obviously his body needs a little bit of rest. And they're like, okay, this is fun, we're getting some nice dialogue, and then oh shit, the wall's breaking, but it's actually not all that stressful because they're doing pretty well. And then by the end of the episode, you're like, okay, let's go back to that wall and pretend like that was stressful, because how in the actual hell are you going to fight Mama next week? Really, I don't know. They better get their ass out of there and hope that their little critter can do whatever the hell they did with Ana and teleport them the hell out of there, because, well, I guess even if they did that, like, she's just gonna come charging towards Gilgamesh, but then maybe again, that canon that we got introduced to will play a factor. I don't know, it's like, my mind is racing and I have no idea how, where, and what the hell they are gonna do next week, but I love that. I love how they introduce this, like, power mechanic. You're like, okay, Solomon, big bad bastard. And then by the end of the episode, it gets even 10 times worse, at least on a visual level. And then they're building up all these character moments with like Ana and Merlin, and got all of like the buddy moments, and Fujiwara making friends with Ushiwaka. It's like, there's all these little moments and you're like, yes, you know, we're fighting on the battlefield, we're taking out demonic beasts, it's looking okay. And then it's like, man, we're gonna lose some characters here, aren't we? It's like, I'm starting to sweat bullets. And that's what's super fun right now about Grand Order, is like, they're really getting you into that tension in the proper way. Obviously, like, the episode kicks off, it sets up more plot, backstory, and where the future of the story wants to go, and then you get all these character moments, and then you transition to the action while still getting character moments. By the time the episode wraps up, you're starting to fear for all of the main servants and humans and inhumans that we've met up to this point, who are on our side because they are good people with their own beliefs, and even if they are questionable, we've come to love their personalities. And at this point, how do you defeat a god in that ability? Like, that's basically a god. It's a demon, it's the devil, and I can't wait to see where that's gonna go. I really like the actual animation for Ana in this episode. I love just seeing her scythe and how, like, it gets powered up by Merlin and things like that, and just how they really let her do these fun little spin kicks and things like that. And I'm sure a lot of people are gonna mention a lot of the 3D that was in this episode, both with Mother and a lot of the demonic beasts. I'd say probably like 60 to 70% of the 3D I actually was a fan of. I thought they actually let the demonic beasts move around quite well, and the textures were pretty solid. But then, of course, obviously, when you have 10 demonic beasts on screen, not all the 3D models are going to be textured as well as maybe the ones in the main focus. So yeah, there definitely was some more clunky 3D for sure, but I think they do blend it well enough that more often than not, I'm actually pleased to look at the demonic beasts. And when they get sliced up, I'm a huge fan of the color of their blood. It's a little detailed, but I like it how, like, they're cutting up so many things that actually do look sort of animalistic. And instead of just making it like super gross and grotesque, they actually make it a little more anime and monstrous, so you're not as maybe disturbed as you might be if you were looking at like a lion getting cut up or something like that. But even though they don't really let the demonic beast gush out blood in a human sense, they definitely do start making us sweat. Like, did they just kill a village of kids? Why is there a blood trail going up the steps? They definitely still have their dramatic, don't get me wrong. It's just, I do appreciate with how much blood we are seeing with all these demonic beasts, make it a little more not so normal with what we see with Earth in general. Let them be purple or green or squirt out all these other just different colors that doesn't feel human. It's just a little touch that I personally really like. So when we do see that red blood, it makes us realize this isn't a demonic beast. This is a human. It's someone who probably got brutally slaughtered, and we're actually starting to sweat bullets. I actually think it's a really smart move myself. I don't know, like, on one hand, ignoring Mother, this was a very enjoyable episode, but I just keep wanting to think about what we saw at the end of the episode and how I wish this was a double-length episode, right? It's like, even though as great as that cliffhanger was, it doesn't take away from how enjoyable this episode was, because before the earth started shaking and shattering, I was having a blast. Ana is quickly becoming one of my favorite characters in Grand Order. I love her mysterious aura, how she looks like this innocent little girl but clearly is hiding some dark secrets, and even Merlin is saying keep them a secret and don't reveal them until basically your deathbed. However, as much as I love that, I still like seeing our Spartan Ushiwaka and or even Fujimaru at this point. Like, there's history, there's like these bonds being formed, and it feels almost like a miniature family, and then it can easily just all go to shit, and even if they are a badass on the battlefield, they could easily die, right? And I like that buildup. I like those simplistic moments. I for weeks have said I love it when they just sit around a dinner table or things like that. I like those simplistic bonding moments. And then when we get into even just demonic beast action, ignoring Mama popping up there, I still really enjoy and start sweating as if, even though they look like a badass, even though they're doing these fancy moves, they could easily hurt themselves, get an arm cut off, or even worse, a head. And I actually do worry, because even though I think Ushiwaka is like doing her blade move, she's looking like a villain at points, she still isn't invincible, right? And I know how easy it would be to kill off, even if they're not the main character. I've really grown accustomed to this cast overall, and I really hope that giant-ass cannon that we got introduced to can come into play, because otherwise, how the hell are you going to take care of something of that size, status, magnitude, power? Like, it is ridiculous. It was bad enough when we had to deal with, like, Enkidu and things like that, and we're like, man, they're kind of, like, evenly tied, if not even more powerful than Gilgamesh, and now we get introduced to someone who can crush the earth with her pinky. It's like, Fate Grand Order knows how to up the ante, I have to say. And it's like, we're not even halfway through this anime, and they're already introducing crazy things like this. This series is gonna get wild, and I definitely think if this is going to be an actual fight scene next week, I definitely think there's gonna be some polish to it, because when an important action set piece is around, they usually give it the time to really flourish. Like, a lot of this action was just more simplistic demonic beast action. So if we are going to get some crazy shit next week, I imagine there was some animators that had a lot of time to polish it up, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I'd be curious, for anyone who's had experience with the game, was this an episode you're really anticipating? How was the reveal of just what we just saw? And for anime onlys, how shocked were you with that ending? Because I assume many people were. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you haven't been new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.